co-founder and joint managing director of Responsible Investor. Speaking with Bertrand Milot, head of stewardship at CDPQ. Please come to the stage.
Welcome back, everyone. It's great to see so many people still here. It's always nice to do the session after lunch as well. I feel slightly more relaxed. We've got this fireside chat, the jargon for a conversation one-to-one this afternoon. And when I was just thinking about what this means for me as a journalist, having I've been a reporter for 25 years now, and running Responsible Investor, working as a journalist in finance previously, I've seen probably way too many initiatives for one life. Way too many jargon, acronyms that have been launched. But for this particular initiative, it struck me that there are a lot of things that I like about what is happening here with the Net Zero Asset Owners Alliance. And the first one is that it has asset owners at the core of it. And when you look at what's happening in the realm of sustainable finance, the role of asset owners in driving behavior, in driving financial thinking is fundamental, and everyone knows that. And the second important part of this is that it has effectively its objective in the title, to reach net zero. And that target is in line with the Paris Agreement, net zero by 2050, and it also is probably one of the lousiest sets of lead letters to form an acronym that I've seen for a while. I don't know what it's going to be, so it's probably not going to be shortened to an acronym that anyone's going to use, so it'll kind of maintain its form as Net Zero Asset Owners Alliance. So it's very much going to attempt to do what it says on the tin, as we say. And it's great to have Bertrand Milot, Head of Investment Stewardship at the Caisse de dépôt et placement du Québec, here this afternoon. I know that actually is handily acronymed to CDPQ. Thank you for that. It's great to have Bertrand here. CDPQ, big Canadian pension funds, $325 billion Canadian dollars under management, a long history of running money for pension and insurance assets in the province. And I wanted to kick off by getting Bertrand to give us a little bit of the backstory on what the Net Zero Asset Owners Alliance is. I don't think there's been a lot of coverage about what's happening, but just talk a bit about, Bertrand, about how this initiative came about and what its aims are and what the work you're doing now is.
Thank you, Hugh. Exactly how the idea formed, I don't know, but I can tell you that in the preparation of Climate Week, which happened in September, the United Nations thought there is a need to do more. We, Allianz and CDPQ, were in the lead, pushing and trying to drum up interest in this initiative. That was in March, April, and seeing how things would coalesce. So it was an idea and trying to make it coalesce.
So that was with Allianz, the German insurer?
The German insurer,
okay, so they were
yes.
And in terms of how it's structured now, what does the organisation look like? It's housed within the UN, or
no. It says asset owner.
That's obviously
yes. Although the UN is very helpful. I'll come back to that. Today it's 16 investors. We had 4 more. I think it was announced last week, representing $4 trillion, and that's Alecta, which is a fund in Scandinavia, Allianz, AMF, Scandinavia again, Aviva, AXA, CalPERS, Caisse de dépôt et consignation in France, us, CNP Assurance, which is a French insurance company, Folksam, which is also Scandinavian, a French pension fund called FRR, Nordea, also Scandinavian, Pension Denmark, Storebrand, Swiss Re, Zurich Insurance. So at the launch, we had $2.4 trillion. Now we have 4, and this is 2.5 months after the launch. So we're pretty pleased with that. But we're looking at you all to join at some point. And very importantly, and what is an interesting fact of this alliance is that UNEP FI and PRI have been providing a huge amount of support and will be handling secretarial duties for the Alliance. And there is also, in association with the Alliance, WWF, which will help us with climate science, and Mission 2020, which is Cristina Figueres' organization, which brings the civil society angle. And I have to say it was, and we had these discussions, and I'll be very candid, it was risky for them to associate their brands with the dirty capitalists. But they did, because they felt that this was sufficiently serious and that the investors around the table were committed and were going to actually make it happen in a way that would make everybody proud. So that's basically the genesis. We're all asset owners, and this is a private sector venture. The other 4 entities advise the board, but they're not on the board. Now, why did we decide to do this? The recognition, and you all know it, is that the planet is on a at least 3.5 degree trajectory. Now, that means that both the economy and the planet and our portfolios face significant climate risk. And a number of, in the finance industry, there's a stream that says, well, I'll make my portfolio super green, I'll divest, and it'll be all good, and good for the planet. The news is that does nothing, because the assets that are generating carbon are there producing carbon. Not only that, it doesn't, okay, it may shield you if you don't have a coal mine in a portfolio, you won't have the risk associated with that, but you will be facing climate risk, direct physical risk, because the climate will be on a 3.5 degree path, and you will be facing transition risk in the rest of your assets, because transition risk is going to affect everything. So it is not the solution. And we and our colleagues in the Alliance are largely universal asset owners. We need to have diversified portfolio. We need to continue to invest in the real economy. Greening the portfolio in the way that I described, both doesn't do it, and B, it creates active risk, to use a financial term. Our portfolio will be out of sync with the real economy, and there might be financial repercussions of that. Underperformance or overperformance maybe, but it will be out of sync. And that is not necessarily desirable when we're managing the pensions or the insurance of millions of people. So what do we do? And the idea was, well, we need to push the entire economy to decarbonize. And I mean everybody. It is not focused on the oil and gas. It is focused on everybody. We asset owners are the true owners of companies. In the end, we have influence, and we need to push all the companies to reduce their carbon footprint across the board, from IT to oil and gas. That is the only way we're going to have the impact that we need on the climate, reduce climate risk, and have a portfolio that will continue to perform, and a planet that will continue to be there healthy by the time all our beneficiaries need their money. So that is the fundamental realization. And it's really, we're looking at it, we're interested in doing good for the planet, but it is really fundamentally a recognition as an investor of the issue that climate change poses for us and our ability to honor our financial commitments down the line. So there is also a realization that the transition that needs to happen is a great investment opportunity. I mean, we already, and a number of our peers in there, invest in renewable energy, in green buildings, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. the housing sector needs to be, the energy efficiency of the housing sector, the buildings need to be improved significantly. That is trillions of dollars of investments right there that can be done either directly or indirectly, but it's that type of opportunities. We know that we will need to find a way to capture carbon at some point. So carbon capture will hopefully become an investable thing. It's not ready yet, but in 10 or 15 years it will be. And then net zero means that, because it is not possible today to say for sure that we'll be able to decarbonize the economy completely. Making cement releases a ton of carbon dioxide, because converting stones into cement, you release the carbon that is in the stone. And you can't do cement without doing that. Airlines, very difficult to decarbonize because they are, there is no other fuel that can be used today, and batteries are way too heavy for airplane. So, so those are not decarbonizable today, but by investing in things that capture carbon, we'll be able to say, well, on a net basis, it's zero.
So just for the benefit of those people like me who may be feeling a little jaded by investor initiatives around climate, what practically makes this different in your view, Bertrand? Because you've been a signatory of the BRI since 2006. What are going to be the practical, concrete steps that you take to do this, and how are you going to demonstrate that you're on a genuine path to net zero? I mean, I think that's what the investor community here wants to see, and that shows that you're serious about what you're doing.
I start by saying that I think we, and I mean KES, has shown that we're serious, because we have already set targets for our portfolio, both in terms of doing green investments and reducing our carbon footprint to some extent, link that to remuneration, and we take all this very seriously. When you look at what other members of the Alliance are doing with regards to climate change and ESG in general, they're also very serious people. So that's the first thing. We just didn't have an epiphany and decided, oh, let's make a great announcement and benefit from the PR. We've been trying to do that. The other thing is, it's asset owners. We are like-minded people. We have very long-term views over how to invest. And that is important because it is a long-term issue. And we need to have assets in the books for the next 50 years. We're not asset managers, we're owners. And that commonality of purpose, for lack of a better word, is a good thing, because it makes the discussion a lot easier. We are associated with civil society, and that's both a stamp of approval for us, a risk for civil society to associate, as I said, to associate with the dirty capitalists, but it's really intended to ensure that the views of civil society are taken, that science is adhered to, and this is the role of WWF to provide that kind of insight and help us with that, because it's all very complicated, and I'm going to explain that a little bit. So that's really, the one of the differentiating things, the ambition level, and the fact that we are going to be trying to come up with a starting point at the end of 2020 with our portfolios. I mean, we at KES are already carbon footprinting our portfolios. Some of the members are not. So we will have to do that work and then set 5-yearly targets, and it will be reported publicly.
Okay. And how dependent are you in this work on governments following through with their commitments to the Paris Agreement? You mentioned this potential for under or overperformance based on what's happening at a regulatory level. How much of a concern is that to you, and does that feed into the work you're doing?
It is critical, and there is I'll come back to that, but there's one work stream within the Alliance, which is public engagement, where we need to engage with governments. And this is key, because regulation needs to be put in place to ensure that there is the right levels of incentive for companies to do the right thing. It's key. Obviously, governments, countries need to set targets. And the reason I'm saying that is, you may know that the Paris Agreement is actually a staircase. There were targets that were set for 2020. In 2020, so next year, the COP next year, the targets are going to be increased, hopefully. It will up to the countries, but they need to do it. And then in 2025, there is a review again and a stock taking. And there, the likely outcome is, boy, we are on the wrong track, and the targets are likely to be tightened, and regulation is likely to be tightened. It's very important, and I'll explain why later. So that needs to happen, obviously. Carbon pricing should be implemented. All economists agree that it's the only way to get there. Fossil fuel subsidies in a number of countries need to be phased out. Those are the obvious ones that everybody talks about. The building codes, I was mentioning the energy efficiency of buildings, they need to be fixed. Energy and efficiency standards in general need to be set. There is, in my mind, a question of, we're in a capitalist system, consumers make the choice. They are in the stores buying stuff, and there is no way to know today how much carbon is in the products. It needs to be, you find any food in a supermarket and you know how much salt and calories and whatever, but there is not a word about carbon. The same for your shampoo bottle or your car, how much carbon has been used to make it. And if that information was available to consumers, then the consumers can actually pick the green product if they feel like it. And then companies then will have an incentive to produce them and produce that information. So that is a question of regulation. Some companies are starting to do it. We were engaging the other day with a very large chemical company that was explaining to us that they're in a process of being able to calculate how much carbon is in their ton of whatever chemical product, so as to be able to pass that information to the buyer of the chemical product. And to me, that's very important, because then whoever is using that to make shampoo will be able to say, well, my shampoo has so much carbon, and hopefully less carbon than the other guy's shampoo. And that needs to happen, because there's a lot of talk today of pushing finance to do the right thing. Fair enough. There